Let us discuss the next question. This question is from 2019. With reference to the Legislative Assembly of a state in India, consider the following statements. Statement 1. The governor can make customary address to the members of the House at the commencement of the first session of the year. Statement 2. When a state legislature does not have a rule on a particular matter, it follows the Lok Sabha rule on that matter. Which of the following statements are correct? Now, statement number 1 says the governor makes a customary address to the members of the House at the commencement of the first session of the year. Just like the president makes an address to the House at the central level, the governor also makes a customary address to the House at the state level. So, this statement is correct. Statement 2 says when a state legislature does not have a rule on a particular matter, it follows the Lok Sabha rule on that matter. Here, there is no clear provisions in the constitution or in the rules of procedure of the House on what happens if a state legislature does not have a rule, whether they will follow the Lok Sabha rule or not. What happens is, as a convention, if a particular state legislature does not have a rule, they follow the Lok Sabha rule. Because earlier when the British government was there, the provinces used to follow the central legislature's rules. Similarly, we have been following the same convention. So I'm clearly saying there are no written provisions either in the constitution or in the rules of procedure. But as a convention, if the state legislature does not have rules for procedure for a particular rule, for a particular matter, in that case, they will follow the Lok Sabha rule as a convention. So this is also correct. Now, which of the following statements are correct? Both 1 and 2 are correct. Now let us look at the in-depth explanation. Article 176, clause 1 clearly says that the governor shall address both the houses assembled together at the commencement of the first session after each general election to the assembly and also at the commencement of the first session of each year. So he will address compulsorily at the first session which comes after the new house is elected after the elections and also at the commencement of the first session of the each year. So the statement here is asking about the first session of each year part. So this particular part is being focused in the question. And Article 2 which deals with the rules of procedure in the state legislature. What does Article 208 says? Article 208 says that a House of Legislature of a state may make rules for regulating the subject to the provisions of the Constitution, its procedure and conducts of its business. So the Constitution clearly gives the power to the legislature of the state to make its own rules, but subject to the provisions of the Constitution. And what are the rules for? In order to regulate and conduct the business of its house. And the next para says, until the rules are made in clause number 1, the rules before the commencement of the Constitution with respect to the provinces, the British provinces, they will have effect and subject to such modification or adoptions that may be made by the presiding officers. So until the rules were made, whatever was the provincial British government rules, they will be following that with the modifications and adoptions as the presiding officers of the house will decide. But when there is no rule on a particular subject in the state legislature, under the convention since the colonial times, we follow the rules of the Lok Sabha. So this is more of a convention than a written rule. So that is why statement C is also correct. Now coming back to the question, the governor does make a customary address to the members at the beginning of each session, and because there is no clear rule and because it is a convention, which a practice which you have been doing as a custom, we do follow rules of the Lok Sabha if there is no particular rule on the state legislature. So answer is C, both 1 and 2.